Welcome to the Racers Roundtable, a podcast sponsored by the Eastern Museum of Motor Racing, where history meets horsepower and legends live on. Each episode brings together voices from across the motorsports world, from grassroots heroes to seasoned veterans, as they share stories, insights, and behind-the-scenes tales that shaped their racing journeys. Whether you're a diehard fan of dirt tracks, drag strips, or open-wheel icons, the Racers Roundtable is your seat at the table for candid conversations and timeless memories from those who lived it. Strap in tight because it's time to talk racing history one lap at a time.
Now we've got Sammy Swindell, and Sammy is a guy that was at the top of the wish list. And I'd like to thank Justin Seitz. Justin Seitz, he and I are friends on Facebook. Of course, in the racing community, you have a lot of folks that you know through Facebook, through social media. And Justin had gotten in touch with me and said, hey, I've got a car of Sammy's that I'm restoring, and I'm actually going down to see him in a couple of weeks. And if he was agreeable to a roundtable at the Eastern Museum of Motor Racing, would that be something you'd be willing to entertain? And I said, well, it's interesting because Alice and I had been talking, and she said put together a wish list. And Sammy was at the top of that wish list. So the timing was perfect, and we certainly appreciate your commitment to the cause, brother. Yeah. And for those of you who didn't hear already, most of you have, but for anyone who ever questioned Sammy's character, he spent the better part of 8 hours at the airport yesterday. All flights were canceled. Somewhere around midnight, he made new flight arrangements. He was been up since 2:30 this morning. He flew to Charlotte, from Charlotte to Philadelphia, and then he just drove from Philadelphia here to the museum with Alan Kreitzer, which, I might add, is comparable to running Syracuse with no roll cage. So, Sammy, thank you. Thank you so much, brother. We appreciate you.
You're welcome.
So for those of you that have attended the roundtables here at the Eastern Museum of Motor Racing, at least the ones that I've been involved with, and they've been so much fun, we like to work through things frequently chronologically, and we're going to do some of that today. In the first part here, we're going to cover some sprint car stuff, and then in the second part of the roundtable, we're going to talk about Sammy's pursuits in other racing venues. You're going to be impressed. Even hardcore fans are going to go away with a greater appreciation. For those of you that know Sammy as a sprint car driver who's come through central Pennsylvania, when you leave today, I think you'll have just a tremendous amount of respect for the man. Well, you're all familiar with the stats. The 3 titles, the 394 feature wins with the World of Outlaws, his 5 Chili Bowl titles, and the countless wins at the highest profile, most lucrative events in the sprint car world. Flatly stated, he's done it all. But what I'm hoping you'll take from today's discussion is a greater appreciation for his accomplishments away from the dirt track arena and how his technical prowess has impacted the motorsports landscape. His book, released in the spring of 2023, chronicles his ambitious and innovative journey through the world of motorsports. It is simply titled, and appropriately so, Sammy, 50-plus years of winning. Please welcome back to the Eastern Museum of Motor Racing 2006 National Sprint Car Hall of Famer. One more time, how about it for Sammy Swindell? You know, we talked earlier about everything that's been happening here at the Eastern Museum of Motor Racing and how it's grown over the last 50 years since the Williams Grove Old Timers was established. We've got some great pieces here. Speaking of great pieces, if you're looking for some of Sammy's cars, I think they're pretty well displayed out at the Museum of American Speed in Lincoln, Nebraska. They still have that going on with them?
Yeah, there's still a few cars out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes they move them to different places, but I think there's 3 or 4 there.
Yeah.
We're hoping to get some more out soon.
Good.
Some of they go in and out of there.
Yeah. Well, Sammy, let's take a walk back in time. Talk about your early years. Man, you've been at this so long now. Your dad was a guy that was involved in racing down in the Memphis area.
Well, he started racing the same year I was born. Was at the racetrack like a few days after that. He had done real well there. Mm-hmm. Won a lot of the championships right around there. Mostly in the sprint cars were the A class, and the modifieds were the B, and the late models were called a C car. So he ran, the ones he built were B cars that he ran most of the time, but he ran all 3 of them at one point. There for quite a few years, he ran the Memphis Race Car Club, was the president there, so got to go to the racetrack, and we'd go to the meetings and all the different things. So I got to see a lot about how everything works, from him building the cars and building motors and stuff, and through every part of it. And, and I was always interested in everything.
You're a self-described tinkerer, is that right?
Yeah, sometimes I too much. I spend too much time on details, but I like it to be right. So
Yeah.
by the time I was 15, they had a little practice earlier, and the year the track was open up in Milan, Tennessee, and we went up there and ran, and everybody thought I did pretty good. He was building another car, didn't get it finished till like the first part of July.
Okay.
So that's when I started in 71. We went to Milan, but he'd crashed the car, and we got there late because we were working on his car. I got in and expected it to be kind of like it was, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And we found out the steering had a tooth broke in it, but we got there a little late, but they pushed us out, and we both got to make some laps to qualify, or time. So kind of hit the fence over here and was over there, and it's like,
Something's not right.
something's not quite right.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to run the very first night I run.
Second night
Was
out,
there.
things went much better, right?
Yeah, the second night, because it was the 4th of July weekend, they ran Friday and Saturday at West Memphis. Friday night, he ran third, and I run fifth. The next night, I won.
Simple as that.
Yeah,
Get in the car and win.
yeah.
You were sort of prepping for this, though, for years. I mean, from an early age, you were a sponge. You were absorbing this stuff.
Yeah.
And before you even got in the car, if I remember correctly, you were pretty well responsible for a good portion of the maintenance on your dad's car, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I was doing a lot of the things, because he was a superintendent for a commercial contractor.
Okay.
By the time I was 12, I was doing a lot of the maintenance on it, a lot of things, or I'd have things ready that I couldn't do for him to do when he got there. Started learning about how everything kind of went together, was able to build motors by the time I was probably 13.
Wow.
Learned a lot of stuff from my uncle about the carburetors, about how to set those up and different things, and was with my dad working on his and doing the setup stuff and tire stuff for that. But from the whole time since I've been around, I was always in the shop with him.
Yeah. That's
Probably 4 or 5 years old, so he'd have me doing something.
That's certainly played to your favor over the years. 1973, then, you graduate from high school and drive a sprint car for the first time.
Yeah, we started running, I was running both the classes there. But we could run the B cars down at Greenville, Mississippi on Friday nights.
Okay.
It was like the next week, the second weekend I drove, we went down, and I won there, and I won like every race down there that year. I don't know, it was just something that fell into my car thing. It was easy down there. I mean, at West Memphis, they started all the cars, and a lot of times they'd have 40 cars.
Oh, wow.
I remember starting on the front, taking off, and I'd go down the back stretch, and West Memphis isn't really big, but when you got 40 cars, there's guys that still hadn't took off yet.
Yeah, that could be
And by the
problematic.
time I made a lap, we were in traffic.
Yeah.
So it was a good place to learn. It was a sticky track and pretty fast there with some banks. So it taught me a lot about going to other places. But I started driving the sprint car, and it was a bit different. Won a few races, but we were always up near the front all the time. But they had a lot of really good guys there at that point. And some of the cars were better than the one I had, but worked hard at it and got better.
I think one of the common themes in your life story has been travel. You've been traveling. When you started running, I guess it was Bobby Sparks, the first owner in the sprint car?
Yeah, we started, that's who I ran for in 73.
Yep.
In 74, we'd start going. On Sundays, they ran up at Hobstadt, which is about 300 miles north of us, and we'd go up there. It didn't take long. We won some races there.
You guys were going to Devil's Bowl in
Yeah,
Florida?
a lot of times in 74, we'd go to Devil's Bowl because they ran on Friday nights, go to West Memphis on Saturday, and go to Hobstadt on Sunday, so that's a few miles.
Yeah, it is.
Because I'm about 450 miles from Devil's Bowl and
Wow.
300 up there, so
You're doing
when you're-
1,600 miles there in the weekend.
yeah, well, when you're 17, it's okay.
Well, things got busy at West Memphis because, as you mentioned, you're driving in a couple divisions. And at some stages of your career early on, I believe you were running 3 divisions.
Yeah, it was just like in probably 70, maybe the last part of 73 or 74, I was running the stock car late model. There was quite a few times I won all 3.
All 3 in the same night.
Yeah, so I was running a lot of laps and had to have 2 helmets for that, though. We didn't have tear-offs so much like we did then, but we had like 2 visors or pull one off. And
Different times.
yeah, a lot of times you're ducking. It was pretty muddy down there sometimes.
Here in this area, we're pretty Pennsylvania-centric. There's a lot of talent, a lot happening down in that Memphis area. Tell us about some of the folks you were racing against, or maybe even some of the folks that you mentored with, that you looked up to.
when we first started traveling, some there in 74, Bubby Jones would come down. He drove for M.A. Brown, and my dad used to race against him because he had a B car up there that they ran at Milan.
Okay.
They never really came down with that. M.A. didn't, but then when he had the sprint cars, he would come down. They were sponsored most of the time by Bruce Kogel Ford. So Mr. Kogel would come up from Alabama. Got a relationship going there because he would come. That was when he was winning a lot of races with that car. But
yeah,
I was making it hard on him to win there at West Memphis. So
yeah,
we had some pretty good races. He beat me some, but I think I beat him more. But that got me in a relationship to a ride down the road later on.
And that was a big ride. I love a good quote, Sammy, and I'm going to share one here with you. I think this is an approach you've always taken, but probably it was more prevalent in your formidable years. You said people would ask, what's the best way for a young racer to get going in this sport? And your response, hang out with the best people. Go find the winners because you'll learn more. What are you going to learn from the guys who run in the back? If they knew enough to teach you anything, they wouldn't be back there in the first place.
Yeah, that's just true.
And that's why you sought out guys like Bubby and Hooker Hood was another guy down there that was hot.
Rick Ferkel would come down there off and on. It was a lot of people that came down there because purse was pretty good for that time. I think they were paying $1,000 to win, which most places might have only been $300 or $500. It doesn't take long. It's like you don't want to ask the guy that's running last how to go faster when you're already ahead of him. But
there you go. It's logical.
Some people don't get my dry sense of humor sometimes. And I'm kind of to the point, but I'm consistent.
There you go. Looking at some of your stats, and early on, one of the stats that really impressed me was by 1975, and here you're still very early in your career. At that point, in 1975, you had 22 sprint car victories in 5 states, and you were running Bob Guillotine. Okay, thank you. One of those victories took place out in a little bull ring out in Stewart, Iowa.
Yeah.
You'd be the guy that was a pretty big name at the time.
Yeah, I wasn't supposed to do that. We'd come up to Knoxville before with Bobby Sparks. So Bob took a little time off from his construction company. We went and did some races, and we went up there. And that place wasn't a lot different from West Memphis. Stewart it was kind of maybe the same size, maybe not banked quite as much. I know we didn't really start up near the front, but we wound up winning there. And was that the one I beat Rager or Opperman?
Opperman.
Yeah, okay.
Pretty big deal.
Yeah.
That was a wingless show, yeah?
Yeah, we're wingless there, and you had the wing with you. You never know which. We go back and forth all the time because we run wings. Well, they run both at West Memphis, and then we'd run a lot of times we'd have a wing and then go run Hopstadt, and they did run wings.
Okay.
Or you go someplace and run one night with a wing, one night without. But yeah, that was special. We didn't have all the stuff we have now, the social media stuff, but I still knew about this guy. I don't think it went over too well.
You said we didn't have everything then that we have now, social media, but that also includes the comforts of travel. I mean, at that point, you're hauling from Memphis. Stewart is 45 minutes to an hour west of Des Moines off of Route 80. And so that's a pretty good hike. And you're doing that stuffed in a pickup?
Well, then with Bob, it would just be me and him.
Okay, just the two of you.
Two of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's still a pretty good haul.
Yeah.
So you're making a name for yourself early. You talked about a ride that's on the horizon, but in between there was another ride that you had from a Memphis-based car, the Bobby Davis Electric number 71.
Bobby had hired Bill Anderson. Some of y'all might know, but been around for quite a bit. But in the winter, he would drive trucks for M.A. Brown, and then he'd work on the race cars during the summer, and he was with Bubby. Anyway, he went to work for Bobby. It was Tommy Noblin that was driving the car at the time, and I guess they kind of had a falling out. So Bill told me, he sat down and he said, well, if you want to win races, you need to call Sammy. He said Bobby about spit out his coffee. He was always wanting to beat me.
Yeah.
And he had a B car before that, so that Ricky Hood drove. So we had a lot of races together. And we started that, and it went pretty good. Got to do a little more travel, a little more things that I haven't done yet, a lot more places that I haven't been to.
And you guys ran Knoxville Nationals. I think you went to Skagit.
Yeah, that was a little bit later. I think Bill Anderson wound up going back, and I got Tommy Sanders that worked for Bobby Allen up here.
I'm glad you brought that up.
We got and he was the one that brought me up here the first time. We got to do a lot more racing, a lot of places, and all the way out to the very northwest corner of Washington State. So got to go up and down the road quite a bit.
And that's quite an experience for a young man, and to be able to explore the country like that and race as often as you are, that led you to a crossroads. You decided to enroll in college. I mean, you're a college student and you're racing.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point you said, I need to make a decision.
You know, if we go back to 73 or so, I'm in high school, living at home, and I'm making $1,000 to over $1,500 a week.
In high school in 1973.
Cash. They didn't give you checks back then.
Right. So anybody has an inflation calculator, plug that in. $1,000 to $1,500 a week. I think most of us would take that. In 1973 dollars,
Yeah.
you're doing well.
Yeah, there's a lot of people I went to school with, and they make $25 or $30 a week.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, when I go to West Memphis, it was $5 to get in, and it cost me about $3 for gas. The B car stuff, it went on a percentage of the gate. It would be from $250 to $500, and I didn't have to split that with anybody.
That always helps.
Cost me $7 or $8 to get in and race.
Yeah, your profit margin's pretty good at that point.
Right after I got going, it's like, well, why do I want to do anything else?
So tell the folks where you were attending college and what your major was at that point.
First, I was going to Memphis State then, was what it was called, and I was doing mechanical engineering. They just wanted to make you do a lot of other things, English and other things there that I didn't have any interest in. And so I went there for a year, then I went over to the State Technical College. You know, when I did the mechanical engineering, we were drawing gears or doing things, just pieces, and didn't make a lot of sense to me. And my granddad built some houses and stuff. So when I moved over to State Tech, I just went into architectural engineering because you can build something there or design something, and then you can see it. When you're designing gears or something, some people won't ever see that.
Right, I got you. So you made the decision that college is not going to be the course you're going to take. Racing looks pretty good.
Yeah, well, I did talk to all of my teachers and stuff there, and still want to do this, but I'm doing this. And half of them was like, okay, we can do that. Then there was some that said, no, you have to be in school. And I said, well, you don't understand. I'm paying my way through school because my parents couldn't afford to do that. It's like, well, I can always go back if this racing thing doesn't work out.
Yeah, well, I think you've done okay.
Well, I'm here today.
There you go. You mentioned the name earlier, M.A. Brown, car owner. He had trucking company down that way?
Yeah.
He was a 2019 National Sprint Car Hall of Fame inductee. And one of the great stats about M.A. Brown, I think over the course of roughly 10 years or so, he had 9 National Sprint Car Hall of Famers behind the wheel of his number 44 Bruce Kogel Ford sponsored car. And of course, that was the ride that you eventually picked up in, when it was August of 77, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it was just right after the Nationals, driving before the FedEx car. They wanted to go racing, so they gave me a chance to go to a lot of places and do a lot of things. And it was that one was different because back then, I don't think he had a motor that was under 400 cubic inches. Getting in that car, it showed me that when you've got everything you can have, how much easier it is. We came to a lot of places and did fairly well with it. We might have come up to Port Royal, and I think I was leading. I think they used to run, a 75 lap race or something up there.
Where's my Port Royal people? Yeah?
We were up there running that, and it was actually leading it for quite a while and had a flat. But that was a little scary because the stands were so close, and you'd have all the little kids waving the flags. I kept thinking I was going to hit one of them.
That's Pennsylvania. That was a high-profile ride. I mean, you've had good rides up to this point. This one's taking you to another level, and you're fully prepared to take advantage of that opportunity. 1978, Ted Johnson forms the World of Outlaws, and you're in the M.A. Brown car on tour, so to speak, with the Outlaws.
Yeah, I think we only ran maybe 10 races, though. M.A. likes to see his car run and stuff, so he wanted to be around. He'd let us go different places, but we'd always have to come back and run at West Memphis some, or places around there, or places he could go to, be at Hobstadt. But we did get to run a lot of like I said, we came up here, got to do a lot more traveling. It's hard to remember all the races we went through back there, but I know we won a fair amount in that car.
Mike Brown, M.A.'s son. You still in contact with him?
Yeah, I'll see him every now and then.
Yeah.
He'll come down to West Memphis, or he'll show up someplace I'm at. He's restored a few of the cars.
Yeah, the 44 is gorgeous.
Yeah, and he did.
Beautiful.
I think he did the TMC car too.
Did he?
He did one of those as one that he'd restored.
Seems to do good work.
He worked there with J&J with Jack. He's a real good fabricator.
You mentioned the FedEx car. 1979, in around there, you make the move and you're in with a guy by the name of A.J. Jeffrey. Tell us what the connection was there.
Well, that was the guy I started running his late model.
His late model, yeah.
His late model. And so if we go back, he was one of the 3 or 4 guys that started with Fred Smith when they were at Little Rock and started FedEx, and they brought it to Memphis. So we run his late model. We won a lot of races and that around locally there. We just got together, and he wound up getting Fred to give us a bunch of money, or give him a bunch of money.
Yeah. And that was a big deal, because with a national tour forming, to be able to bring in a company, well, it wasn't as large as it is today, of course.
No.
But at that point, to be able to bring that type of company in, that was a pretty significant move.
Yeah, it was still a big company, just getting started, but it just that one didn't last real long. But
when it did.
It did. Yeah,
I think you had
quite a few. We won a lot of races for that, too.
79, I think you were third at the Knoxville Nationals after coming through the B.
Mm-hmm.
Ran behind Ron Schumann and Randy Smith.
Yeah, and we had Carl Kinzer's 355 motor in there. It was a little slick track. We had a problem with our motor, so he loaned us one. That probably didn't make anybody's notes.
1980, probably the car I first remember seeing you in when you came to Pennsylvania. And this was just another step in your career, another step up the ladder. You ran for Laverne Nance. That was a high-profile ride at the time, it seemed. And I think you were a big part of making that a high-profile ride.
Yeah, there was a lot going on there. It was George Gillespie called me one day. He said, hey, you need to go out there and see Laverne. So I did. So we went in there with him and his wife in his office, and he said, and the first thing he said to me, he said, I don't think I can afford to have you. I said, you can't afford not to have me. And went on to explain the stuff I'd learned in the short period of time, just the way I looked at doing things, or we can do this and do that. I said, we need to build a car that a guy with a toolbox this big can put it together and go race. You're a machinist. He said, yeah. I said, you can make fixtures where everything's the same. Yeah. You can make the cars the same. You can make all this stuff exactly the same. I said, well, I want to do this. We build the cars and stand them up, build the sides and do it this other way. But all the parts, like the body or the Zeus, everything has to be the same. So you can just take a part off, a guy can put it on. Because that was the biggest thing back then. You bought something, well, you had to work on it. You had to file on it or cut it or something or fit. Nothing was that close. So it was like always, when you could get some parts or you got something, it was always you had to work on it.
Yeah, so you're looking for consistency of operation. Yeah. You're looking at the minute details to make sure that when you've got a car, it's what you had before and you know where you're going to go with your adjustments.
Yeah, I told him I want to put everything on a schedule, that we run so many laps on everything so it doesn't break.
That was brilliant.
Because I said, you're a manufacturer, the stuff you don't make, you buy at a discount, you make a profit on. So it's like, it's going to cost us too much to fall out of races, because we were talking about going to run the whole World of Outlaws series. That's the biggest deal, is we've got to finish every race. But we'll put it on a schedule, we'll do all this stuff. And I said, you won't have any problem selling my cars. And we'll just say we'll run them for a little bit and then get another one. That one kind of almost backfired on me, because then he was wanting to, when can I have another car?
Yeah. You didn't get much time in them then.
No, but on your parts deal, I said, instead of just selling the guy radius rods and Heims, make the fixture where all the cars are the same. We can just make fixtures. Your grandkids could go out and build radius rods and have them set. Instead of selling them a rear arm and this and that, you sell it with the pinch bolt, the shock bolt, the rod in, and it's all set up. All he has to do is slide it on the car. When I drove for him right before that, his car, man, it's like you could adjust everything on it. There was all kinds of things. And he was a little reluctant to take a lot of that stuff off. So it's like, we just bolt this one together and you can't really mess it up. But then I asked him, I said, well, how many cars did you sell last year? He said 45. I said, well, I bet you we can do over 200. Wow. And he's like, I said, well, you're going to have to hire another welder.
Mm-hmm.
The one guy's not going to be able to keep up. And so it started. That year we ran 136 nights, and I fell out of 2 races. One was a flat tire, and one we got a hole in the oil filter.
no mechanical
no
failures.
mechanical
Right.
failures at all in that many races, and we won 56 races and the World of Outlaw Championship.
And that became sort of a calling card for you. You being a driver, but with a business mindset, someone who knew how to run the entire team. You saw the big picture, what it took to be successful.
The more I knew, the more I'd be worth. The more I could do, the more I was going to be worth. Just being able to do everything, a lot of people probably wouldn't want to take that on. But, I wanted to race, and this was going to give me a chance to run the whole World of Outlaw for all the races, all the big paying races. We even got to run a lot of other races, and all that comes with, every time you run it and you win, that makes my bank account look a little better. So it just all adds up. If I could control it all, I knew what I wanted to do, and was able to do that.
Sammy, I think one of the other areas where you were proved invaluable to the not only Laverne Nance, but other chassis companies down the road is you formed relationships with these folks, and then you were able to provide input to the design of their chassis. And they would incorporate that input, make a better car, and to your point earlier, sell more cars.
Well, if we back up to the FedEx car, went out to Phoenix a few times and was at some races, and I got to know Gary Stanton, and so we got to be pretty good friends and stuff. So he said, I want to build you cars, and I said, I want to make some changes from the car you got. So he said, I'll build you a couple cars however you want them. At the same time, he made 3 cars. I said, what are you doing? Why are you doing 3 cars? And he said, I'm going to have one here sitting here. So it didn't take me but about 3 weeks of running that one, and he showed up with Ron Schumann with it. I said, you got my other car out here. He said, it's been looking pretty good. But, there's just a lot of little stories down through everything. But, to get back, there wasn't a lot of corporate stuff in the race. It was just a guy owned a business or had a car, or something like that. So when we went out to Phoenix, if we go back to 74 the first time, Bubby Jones had showed me how to, we talk to this promoter and he'll give you this money. You can get this money, or you can get a hotel room, or you can get some gas
show up money,
whatever. So we'll go out there, talk to Keith Hall, and got us room for the whole week, and got to spend time out there. And that's when I was driving for Bobby Sparks, and so Ben Foote from Mascot comes down to me and he says, we want you to come over to the Pacific Coast Open the next week. And I said, it's really not up to me. Let me see if the guys can come over there. And he said, I got this. I can give you this much money, and I can give you a room for the week on the beach. And it's like, go back and talk to Bobby Spark. Okay. Well, he called his dad. Yeah, we went over there and did that. So I got to go see a lot of the manufacturers that was out there. So I got to start just building more and more acquaintance, stuff that we would have a problem with the car, or this is what would break first, or this we had issues with. I could deal with them. I've seen how they made pieces and did the things, so I was able to help in making their parts better.
So you provided feedback to the manufacturer sponsors, the folks that you had developed relationships with. They had enough trust in you to make that a reality then. They knew it would benefit them as well.
Yeah, even though I was 18, 19 years old.
Wow. Sammy, one of the other things I thought was interesting when we talk about your ability to manage a team. You're a guy that, let's say you're involved with a tour, and the tour is going from Knoxville, and they're going to go out and run Chico and up through Skagit. You would sit down and do the numbers and say, financially, does this West Coast swing make sense for me, for our team?
There was a lot of guys that I drove for that couldn't run the whole World of Outlaws schedule. And so we would just pick out things and see what made sense and where we thought we could make the most money for what we were doing. And that was okay. There was plenty of races going around. The first part of the Outlaws, they went to a lot of different places, and it was quite a bit of money to stay out on the road back then. But we would put a schedule together with kind of what the owner was looking to spend.
Yeah, you had to stay within that. One of the things I wanted to touch on just briefly here while you were with the Nance team, Tommy Sanders, still with you, I think, at that point, and there's another fellow whose name would reappear throughout the course of your career, Ken Jenkins.
Ken was out there, and that was another thing that he was trying to get me to go out there at the same time, too. Then he was over at Gambler, and he had his own deal out of Dodge City there for a bit. But we did a lot of things together over the years at different places.
Yeah, it comes back to those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, after the Nance deal folds, your next move from there, met up with a guy named Raymond Beadle, I believe.
Yeah, that was just a deal. Like at the end of the year, I got on a plane. I was just going to go down to the Winston Cup race in Atlanta.
Okay.
I flew into Dallas and went from Dallas to Atlanta. I got on the plane and wound up sitting next to Raymond Beadle. And so we start talking about stuff, and that's when he's telling me he's trying to put a cup team together. And he's got his funny car. He said, well, maybe we could add a sprint car deal and then put you in a few races over there. Part of the deal for me leaving Nance, we were still going to run his cars, but then he decided to let his son run the business, and he wanted to go a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where that split, but that brought me back to Ken Jenkins and Gambler. We started running those cars. We didn't run the full schedule, but we ran quite a few races, and it gave me an opportunity to run some of the NASCAR stuff.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that a little bit more in the second half of today's roundtable. And when we do, I want you to think back on everything that we've talked about here in the early portion and understand that while all this is happening over here, Sammy's also doing this over here that we're talking about right now. It's super impressive. You're with Raymond Beadle, 1983 Knoxville Nationals.
We should have won that one. Or we did.
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah.
We had some pretty good runs, and that brought me into, he had Bob Westfall there working at his shop. He built the motors. They were starting to build some motors there. About the middle time of the year, a lot of guys had the aluminum 430 motors, and we were still running a steel block 406. It was about just before the Nationals that we got the aluminum 430, and it's like, we put that in, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. And I think we won about 6 races in a row, and counting the Nationals. And then after we ran so many races on it, he had to take it back and wanted to look at it. And it's like, man, you're going to make me go back to this other. I'm spoiled now. Because it's way easier to pass people with this lighter motor with way more, another 100 horsepower.
Wow, that had to be huge.
Yeah, that was huge.
Was this the point Deuce Terrell came on board right about this time?
Yeah, he was there. And the one guy that was from Wichita that come over and nagged me, Steve Cox, he followed me over to Beadle's team. We'd been together a couple of years. And then Deuce comes down, and it was all good. We had some good runs, a lot of good times. We didn't get to run as much as we wanted to, but we had 4 years with the Raymond.
All in all, good.
Learned a lot of other things too. There's a lot of that. He owned Chaparral Trailers, which that was
that's right.
Cadillac of the thing to have at the time. So we said, well, we just need to build a trailer for the sprint car. And we did that. He sold a lot of those too. That gave me another project to work on.
Yeah. You were with Raymond's team 1984. You were second in World of Outlaw points. You won at Syracuse. Why were you so good at Syracuse? I think there's probably a couple factors, but I read somewhere you won like half your starts there, like 5 out of 10 or something like that.
I don't want anybody to get upset here.
No, have at it, brother.
But somebody asked me about that. Well, how come you go so much better on the miles than most people? It's like, I think these guys are used to running the half miles, and they run 120 mile an hour. Like Syracuse, and you run 185.
That's ridiculous.
Well, they're hitting the chip at 120, so it's like the rest of the way it's like, oh shit, I ain't gonna make it. I was talking with Alan on the way up here. He was asking me something about why are you so good on the bigger tracks? It's like, I liked them. You get your car dialed in just right, and you just go around there and just like you're going down the freeway. I mean, the speed's there, but if you don't want to go fast, you didn't need to be in there anyway. But
yeah.
Like to go fast. Just like Ricky Bobby.
Yeah. Perfect. But I remember you said at one point, speed has a way of weeding drivers and cars out of
Yeah, well, that was, there's some guys that just, I've been around enough people that run quarter miles where they have trouble going to the next step. Mm-hmm. I've seen guys go from 360s to run 410s, and they can win 360 races, but then they can't do any good. 410s are so much quicker. And it's the same with the bigger tracks. I always liked the faster places because I had fewer people to compete with. It narrowed a lot of them out.
Yeah.
And some of it was just we had better cars or had better stuff, but still it's trying to get all that out of it. I did win most of the mile tracks. I think that's why they quit going to them.
It's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
At this point, we look back, Sammy, you had those 2 back-to-back titles with Laverne Nance, 81, 82. Between 1981 and 1989, you had one season where you were below the 20 win mark, so you're getting it done. And though you do like the fast tracks, I had another great quote here, and I want you to talk about this. The strategy you developed was unique, but I certainly see where you're coming from. You once said, I wanted to win going as slowly as I could.
That's something, and I tell people, if I can get my car where I can run 90% and win, I'm not hard on it. I don't make very many mistakes. Mm-hmm. The thing is, if like somebody comes up to challenge me, I still got that 10% to go, and that spoils their day.
And meanwhile, on the flip side of that coin, some of your competitors, they might be running 110% one lap, and then the next lap, they're in recovery mode.
That's what I've told a lot of people that helped and stuff, and it's like you can't do 100% every lap. 90% is still hard to do. If you just add it up, if you make half your laps 100% and half of them 50%, you're only at 75%. So my 90% wins.
Every time.
Yeah, and at 90% it feels like I'm going slow.
Until you get to victory lane.
Yeah, well, that way I can, at Syracuse, I can go change the radio stations back and forth. You just relax and go. But yeah. I tell a lot of these kids and stuff, it's like, I just want to go for a ride. And if I can go for a ride, then I'm having a good time. And I'm not stressed out.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if some people play golf, but if you're tense, it's a long ways to that hole.
Love the perspective. Sammy, 1988, you partnered with another gentleman out of the Des Moines area, an iconic ride, the TMC #1.
That was another Ken Jenkins deal.
Okay.
He wound up that the Harold did buy Stanton out.
Yep.
A couple of years after, or a year or so after I was there. I guess me and Harold got along pretty well, because he wanted his stuff clean, wanted it nice, and he liked to win. So they had me come down, and I drove his car at Knoxville, and we won, and they hadn't won all year, so it's just things go from there.
So he bought Gary Stanton operation, moved it to Des Moines, and renamed it?
Challenger.
Yeah. 1989, is that when you went to run with USA, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably was.
So Larry Clark was the president, and he had a relationship with Harold?
Yeah, if you ever look at the cars, the early ones, it's like on the fuel tank, he'll have Larry Clark CPA, and that's what he did for Harold.
Okay.
Harold was wanting to make racing better, the sprint car stuff, and he had backing to do it at the time. He talked with Ted quite a bit, so he says that they'd come to terms on a deal, and they'd write him a check, and Ted would push it back and want more. And so after about the third time, he wasn't very happy with that. So he thought he could start his own deal. I mean, he had the right intentions, but the problems they ran into with that was Ted wound up having all the tracks tied up.
Okay.
So there was a lot of places that we couldn't go to.
Because they were committed to the World of Outlaws tour. Okay.
Yep.
Well, that season, I believe you had 12 feature wins with USA, another 4 with the World of Outlaws. Here in the area, Hagerstown Speedway seems like it's been a pretty good stop for you over the years. I keep seeing that name pop up. You won there in May with the Outlaws, and then you went back, I think, August and September, and won with USA. What about Hagerstown suits your style?
If we even go back to Hobstock,
Sure.
where I'm running the bottom and everybody's at the top, it's like I could run the bottom pretty well.
Okay.
At Hagerstown, I could run the top fine, but when there was something down there, I could really go where a lot of people couldn't.
Yeah.
And it's a fairly fast place, but
There's some finesse to it.
there's some finesse to it, trying to run that inside wall.
Okay.
I was there some times back in the 70s, and I watched a guy named Smokey run down there quite a bit. So
Yeah.
it's like, there might be something to that.
Also, 1989, Sammy, and this speaks to that whole tinkering mindset. You debuted a car with independent front suspension and rack and pinion steering.
Well, after I took it down to Volusia, Ted called me and told me I couldn't run it. I said,
Why was that?
There's not a rule in there that says you can't. He says, but there will be. So that was a lot of work for not much. I could run the all-star races, but there were some things I'd learned from being around the stock cars.
Okay.
And so I learned how to do the bumps. I could do my own stock car, how to set the front ends up, and all the different things you could make it do, all the adjustments and things that you could change that you couldn't do with a regular beam axle. Every time I ran it, I was fast time, but we had a problem with the rack. After looking at it, I could have went right back to the regular steering, and it would have been really good. There was just a lag because, and there again, I learned something. It's like the sprint cars, the pump's right there, and the lines are real short, so it has to move really quick. So
it's very responsive in the traditional.
So we had a little bit of a lag.
Okay.
Like qualifying, you're wide open. And we're Volusia, you're just not much wheel. And so I could make it roll around there, but the thing was, I could run the car way softer in the back. I could run the car with less stagger because I could make the front end turn. It would have been a big advantage for I don't know how long, but we never got to deal with it because I wasn't going to be able to run it.
Right.
Learned a lot of things from that, but it's still there if we could ever get it back somewhere again.
You still have it?
Well, I've got all the blueprint, all the prints.
Okay. Yeah.
It's all laid out right
I got
there.
you.
So, but it's funny that comes up because just yesterday a friend furnishes the motors from a Chili Bowl cars, Tim Bertrand. He says, I want to do an independent front end TQ. I said, you can. It's going to be a little tight. And then he said, there's a guy that's got one. He looked at it and I said, yeah. It's like, well, it could probably be cleaned up on some details, looking at some pictures, but I could help him out with what it's going to do or how it's going to change his car and what he can do. It was all fun. It was all a learning experience. It was just, you put your heart and soul into something, and it's legal when you built it, but when you take it to the track, it's not. That's not fair.
No, I get it. But as I understand it, you had a computer program, this is 35 years ago, that would illustrate or give you some sort of visual as to what changes you made with the mounting positions, what that would do to the car, and what it would look like.
Yeah, we got to realize the computers and everything were a lot different. Yeah, but I could put it in there, and you could move the front end up and down, and it would tell you where the points, and you could see how it would all work together with everything moving. If you had to input all the dimensions, and then it would tell you that when you could move it or when it rolled, either way, what was going on.
And I would think for sprint car racing, that would be pretty cutting edge for the time.
Oh, yeah, even for me.
So I want to talk just for a minute, Sammy, about Sammy Swindell, the innovator. We've touched on a couple things, but there were some other areas where you were doing some experimentation, where you saw maybe a shortcoming and came up with a practical solution. 1987, tell us about the Kodiak big tube car.
Well, it was just from the Indy cars. They used to build the aluminum tubs and stuff. And being around some of the guys I'd know, and spend some time with them, what little time I had extra to spend, but and then a guy comes out and builds a carbon fiber tub that Johnny Rutherford's driving, and he's like way faster. Well, it was stiffer. I'd had some cars, even when we go back to M.A. Brown's car, the 44, he had two cars that we were running, and Bubby would always say, this car is perfect, one of the best cars he's had. That's when they used to have the top rail. Jack Elam built it. The rail went under the headers and then back up and over. The car that ran the best, they put the bar back in above the headers. The other car didn't have that. And he says, you got to run 1100 bar in the right front. It's the only way it works. Getting to run both of them, I could see what he was talking about, but you had to run the other car different. And so it would flex, and the only way to get it out was to put the bigger bar in and kind of like preload the car. So from then on, it's like the stiffer I can make the car sometimes, I can make it 100% by just using the shocks and the bars and all the air pressures and stuff. Where the car that flexes, if you're on a little track, maybe that might be better, but you go to a bank track, it's going to flex too much, and then you won't like it. So I was into building cars that were stiffer or stronger. When we designed some cars, and even if you look at the one on the back that we built in 77, I moved the bends in the frame where the top rail goes and made it a bigger space in between. A lot of little things that made it stronger. And it had X in the front, X in the bottom, and that car won a lot of races. But it wasn't all so much about what I designed, but it was probably about 250 pounds lighter than what everybody else was running at the time.
Oh, okay.
So I pick up some things from Bobby Allen every now and then. Because this stuff's always lighter than anybody else's, or it was.
Yeah. One of the other things I thought was interesting, at one point, were you looking into turbocharged V6s?
Yeah, I had a deal going, back when they were just starting to do that, the IndyCar stuff. They had the Buick V6.
Fine engine.
And a turbocharged. At that time, there wasn't anything there that said anything about you couldn't have a turbo.
How long did that last?
Well, we never got started. This time I called Ted and said, hey, I got this corporate deal. Maybe you could get some money from GM and I could get these motors. But I guess they didn't want to give him any money. Because before we ever got it off the ground, there was a rule, no turbos. It was going to be lighter. There was a car that run up here that the Cook brothers had that they ran quite a bit. Ran pretty good, and it was definitely lighter.
Yeah.
But with the turbo, we could, they were telling me how much boost they could make and make it live with 1,000 horsepower. Well, at that time, that was like, and you just got the knob, you could turn the boost up and down. It's like, okay, well, this is qualifying mode, or this is pass mode, this is like race mode. It's like, we could cut it up and down. I mean, that would have thrown a big can of worms and stuff there. But that's one that
never got off the ground.
Never got off the ground.
Let's jump ahead here. 1990 and 91 combined, those two seasons, 69 wins. And among them, I think we got here, Selinsgrove National Open, that was $50,000, and a headdress. That was kind of goofy, wasn't it? You got a $50,000 check, you don't care what you're wearing.
Yeah, when they come out and it's like, what's this? Okay.
Syracuse Nationals, won them twice.
Yeah.
Ohio Speed Week twice. There was a little thing called the Fram Dash at North Texas Speedway, paid $65,000 to win. You took their money and ran.
Yeah, that was the only two they had.
I guess they got tired of writing checks to you. I don't know. 1990, of course, was a big year here in Pennsylvania because Bobby Allen, the hometown boy, wins the Knoxville Nationals. That was a duel with you. Tell us the story behind the oil leak.
It was in the TMC car. We were running Gertie motors. Back then, we had those Moroso valve covers that were stamped out. They were pretty thin. You had to be careful or you'd bend it too much. You could tighten it down. You just had to be careful with it.
Okay.
And they had some trouble with the gaskets. They would try to push out or push in. And if they pushed in a little bit, they'd hit the valve springs, and the valve springs would like pull them on in.
Wow.
They decided they would make a gasket with a steel piece in the middle. I got some that they used a different glue on. Some run somewhere, somebody grabbed the wrong sauce. It slid in on the right side, so it was making a big mess.
You were pretty well saturated.
You couldn't see because it would blow up in your face, and then it was just tear-offs.
So you're just wiping oil across your visor.
Well, but your hands would get so wet that on one yellow, I got them to get me some tear-offs, and then I threw my gloves out, and they threw me some more gloves, so I put them on.
Under caution?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I had some talented guys that knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Hand signals. But that was another one up there I could have won fairly easily, but it had got so bad and the steer wheel got so slippery that I was having to drive it holding on to the spokes. I tried to run the bottom because that's where Bobby was. I knew if I could just run the bottom, but I couldn't see it good enough to hit it. I slid out. But
I guess the track lighting wasn't as good then as it is now, so that's going to play into it.
But
already have limited visibility.
they paint their wall a lot up there at Knoxville, so I just followed the white line up at the top. But it was just a little more than I could. He was good enough to be better than my off day.
Yeah.
It wasn't very easy to drive, but I wanted to win. I didn't crash. I ran second.
Yeah, I remember watching that event, and the thing I didn't consider at the time was how slick that steering wheel would have been.
Between not being able to see and not being able to hold on.
Yeah. Generally, you like to have both of those things playing in your favor. Yeah.
Well, I was in the car, and it was pretty ugly. Me driving and bouncing, hitting this and that, but kept my foot down.
There you go. 1991-92, World of Outlaws did a little experimenting. They ran some pavement races. That played to your strength. You had 3 wins, twice you were runner-up, and a top 5. Was that partly because of, at the time, you were doing some pavement racing?
I don't know. I think that my take on running the tracks that get rubbered up, it's like you'll see a lot of guys that when the track gets locked down, they're still wanting to gas it and have the back out a little bit. And you see them, it looks nice, their tires smoking, but I was always good at just finesse with the throttle and stuff to keep everything straight and carrying a lot of speed. And so when we got to the pavement stuff, that suited me, and I think that was another reason they may have decided not to do that. The other guy was having trouble didn't win a race on pavement.
There was another guy?
Well, he should be on your list.
Yeah. No, I didn't know if you wanted to elaborate. We can come back to that later. Yeah, let's come back to that later. 1992, 33 wins, including the Kings Royal, Silver Cup at Lernerville, and incidentally, this is your third consecutive year with 30 or more wins. And I'm going to mention this one because I think our videographer, Steve Gigas, I think he has footage of this. You won at the Suncoast Dome in Florida. That was earlier indoor race, yeah?
Yeah, that was different running in a baseball field.
Is that what that was?
It didn't pay very good.
No.
We didn't get paid at all. I'll go down in the Guinness Book of World Records of winning a World Outlaw race that paid $0.
$0. Another series I'd like you to talk about, Sammy. Winner of 92, 93, and then again 93, 94. And I remember when this hit television, Diamond P Sports and Pat Patterson, that Slick 50 Sprint Car World Series. What did that do for the sport?
Well, it brought some live TV in. I think there was some before with the TNN.
Right.
It was just a deal that Pat Patterson put together. He got some money from Slick 50 and was able to promote those races live. It just gave another opportunity to do that, and TV brings in, it's a lot easier to get the corporate money when you're on TV.
Yeah.
I don't think that at the time the stuff they had or the way that, they could really do a great job with it. And some of it, they wanted to do it at a certain time, so it wasn't the best time for a dirt track.
Okay.
Because a lot of it we were doing, before the sun went down. But, it gave an opportunity to do sprint car races on live TV.
Yeah. Was that January?
Yeah, I believe it was.
So first year it was at Manzanita. You're in the TMC number 1. I think you had 3 wins that year. Second season, you had a victory. It was hosted at Canyon Speedway. And then you were in, I think, Jeff Gilliam's car.
Yeah.
You talk about corporate money, talk about exposure. That's something you were acutely aware of from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Presentation is part of the game. You got to bring a quality product to the table, but it better look good as well. You got a better chance of bringing some money in.
Yeah. Well, that was from probably me going up to the Speedway there at Indy and seeing Roger Penske's stuff. And I decided I needed to be like that.
Not a bad model.
No.
1995, you established Swindell Motorsports. First off, it's the Hooters number 1. Win 10 out of 48 starts that year, including 5 straight with the World of Outlaws. Starting your own team, that's a pretty strong effort.
Yeah, it was expensive too. But yeah, we did that whole year. We had 2 cars and 1 motor. Didn't get to run like a whole season with the Outlaws, but I was able to run quite a few races.
Following year, Channel Lock comes on board, and then in 1997, you claim your 3rd World of Outlaws title, and I think significantly, it's no longer an issue, but at the time, people questioned whether you could do it at your age.
Yeah.
You were, 41, going on 42?
Yeah.
And in the process, became the first owner-driver to win a World of Outlaws title.
I never thought of that.
You seem to take a great deal of pleasure in proving people wrong, proving that you can do what you set out to do. And I think that's a great trait to have.
Yeah, well, this past year I ran 18 races and won 6.
Did I see you were out in Victory Lane pretty frequently? Were you out in Colorado? Am I remembering correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whose car are you in there?
I've been in different guys' cars out there, but I've been there 5 times and won 4 of them. Should have won the 5th time, but I started 5th and got a good run, and I went to the top, so I was behind the guy that started on the front. Well, he spins out. There's a guy right underneath me, so there's no place. I just had to stop. So started 23rd, and I think I run 4th. But it got rubbered up. But it was hard to pass, but I was doing it.
Going to do more of the same this year?
Well, I don't know. I haven't been out there since I've been 69.
Dude, you got to keep it rolling. You got to keep your streak alive.
Yeah, it's like at some point I'm going to be too old.
I don't think I thought I'd ever hear you say that.
Well, that's what everybody else says.
Yeah, okay. 97, 7 straight wins on a West Coast swing. That's almost unheard of anymore.
Well, that was right after losing another Knoxville National.
Was that the Mark incident, or am I misremembering?
Man, it might have been. I don't know. There's a bunch of them.
Too many.
Yeah.
But you did win your first Williams Grove National Open.
Yeah, that was nice. It was
swept the weekend.
Okay. Well, that was a sweep.
In Sammy's defense, let me share this, and I think this is perfectly logical. He said people will ask him from time to time about a certain event, certain race, that type of thing, and it just escapes him. But he has had so much success that sometimes it's difficult to remember everything that you have accomplished. Whereas if I'm a racer and I've got 2 big wins, I'm going to be able to tell you every lap and who I beat, what I ate for dinner that evening, that type of thing. But swept the weekend. Now, let's jump ahead. 1999, another $50,000 check for winning your second Kings Royal.
Well, I've always enjoyed running at Eldora.
What is it about Eldora does it go back to that whole Syracuse mindset?
Some of it, but that's where I got my nickname, too.
I'm listening.
Well, you know what it is?
I know what one is, but I was under the impression that Slammin' Sammy came from your father being Swingin' Sam, and they started calling you Slammin' Sammy when you were really young.
No.
No?
No.
We're going to have to talk to Bob Mays then.
Yeah, well, this was at Eldora, and Terry Balt was supposed to announce her Earl's son, and I was one of the first people to run wide open around there.
Okay.
So that's where I was slamming the corners, so
okay.
The nickname went from there.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that could fit, so...
Going back to high-speed events, Bristol Motor Speedway, 2000, 2001, and this is ridiculous. You turned a qualifying lap of 138.44. And if I'm remembering correctly, and I could be off here, but I think that was faster than the Cup cars.
Yeah. Channel Lock wanted me to go up there since they were sponsoring an event, asked me to go up there and run on the pavement. They had it worked out where I could go out there right before the Cup race started. And there was a lot of guys there that didn't want me to do that.
No.
And we just put some pavement tires on our car and went out and ran and on the pavement. And I might have run faster that day, but I wasn't the right gear in it. It's like if I put a gear in that'll run about 160, it should be okay, but it wasn't. Because it was about 8,600, about halfway down, so I was just pedaling it, but I still ran a half a second faster than the Cup cars.
Wow.
A lot of guys came down there, the officials, and was looking at it because they were worried that I would crash or something would happen because their race was going to go right out after I was on the track.
Oh, okay.
But I was friends with Gary Nelson at the time that was running it, so he said, "You going to be all right?" And I said, "Sure." Yeah, it was different running on that because, when they put the dirt on, they went all the way down to the inside wall. So it was maybe, I think they said 24 degrees, or it's 36 on the pavement. I know once I took off and kind of got rolling, it's like I can't see where the wall is because the wings up. I'm like leaning down.
Jeez.
When I'm coming off the corner to see, it's coming up.
Good to know.
When I come back, it's like, well, I got to think about that when we come back. But that was a blast, just cruising around there and still going that fast. I was a little worried because the tires I got were some super modified tires at Goodyear. That's all they had that they used to run like up in the Northeast. And I think they were probably 15 or 18 years old.
Well, that's comforting.
So it's like, are we really going to make it? Yeah, when we went there, we practiced the first Bristol dirt event. When I was walking out later, there was a state trooper up there, and he said, "You're the fastest one." I said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Got you on the deal." I said, "How fast am I going?" He said, 185. That's cool.
That's cool. You won both those shows. I remember the 2001 show. I was there with SCN Radio. We covered that. Wayne Harper and I were there.
Mm-hmm.
Ridiculous duel with Jeff Shepard.
He was just a pest for a while.
For a while?
Well, I did win. But
no, I just mean Jeff's a guy that likes to stir the pot. That's all I mean.
Yeah. We'd been riding motorcycles earlier today. We were both friends with Les Stewart. Yeah, I didn't start in the front. I had to start back, so I had to get through a couple cars pretty quick. But I'd passed Jeff on one end, and the other end he passed me back. We did that about 3 times, and I said, okay, I'm going to change this up. I'm going to pass him at the end he passes me. Then he disappeared. He couldn't pass me back on the other end.
Out of rhythm.
I don't know, we're out of balance.
Let's go 2010. Your second stint with Todd Queering. You'd filled in before for Terry McCarl. You win your second Williams Grove National Open. You set fast time that night. A couple things worth mentioning here. I was actually watching it last night on the vault on Dirt Vision. Pass on the restart for the lead. You went through the middle. Was brilliant. And that win ended a streak of 9 consecutive wins by the Posse. Sorry, Lee Stauffer, Greg Hodnick's mechanic, is here, and they had won 3 or 4 straight, I think, but that was a strong effort.
I think Jason Myers was leading it.
Yeah.
He seen me on the bottom, so he moved over.
I think you came from 7th that night.
I know the night before, it was like we had a late number, so we went out and made the race, but we started way back. And my guys were like, what are we going to do for tomorrow? And I said, nothing. We just got to get a good number. And it's like I got the first one, first out.
That's right. You were first
Fastest
out.
car.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot that.
Yeah, I took a car that qualified like 28th or something the night before. And didn't touch it. Sometimes you just need that little bit for everything to fall in place.
Yeah, and you got to take advantage of it.
Take advantage of it.
Let's talk about racing the Posse. The fans historically get juiced when the World of Outlaws come to town. Some of the drivers do likewise. And you took a lot of money home to Tennessee over the years. 16 career wins at Williams Grove. Then there were victories at Hagerstown in the region here, Sealands Grove, even out in Lernerville, where you took the Silver Cup on numerous occasions. You've done well up this way.
I've always enjoyed coming up. It was different. You know, when I first come up here, these were tracks like I've never been on before. Just the guys I got to race with, like Lynn Paxton, who had a good relationship for a long time. You know, and Bobby Allen, Smokey Silvaker. Those are the guys we'd race, and then we'd come in and they're all come down and we're talking. You know, it's like you didn't have that a lot of places, but there was just a lot of guys that was real friendly, and they didn't like me beating them, but yeah, I don't know if they were coming down to talk to me or they coming down to just check out my car.
Yeah. Well, something that you would do, you would walk through the pits. I think I read somewhere you said where, you know, some guys might go down through the pits and they might look at tires or they might look at this particular area. You said there might be like 30 things you're looking at. How do you take all that in just on a stroll through the pits?
Well, you can't always see all that every time, but there's things that might make a difference. You know, one thing that helped when I was running full-time or when I run with some of these guys, there's guys that like their cars a certain way, and there's guys that would run their cars other. You know, it's like I just paid attention to who was going fast at that time, and I figured that if I could make my car like theirs, I had a 50% chance of beating them. It's always seemed to work, but, you know, it's being able to race with guys a lot, and they have their tendencies. One guy likes more right rear, one guy likes more left rear. And, you know, when guys jack their cars up and stuff, you can look at it and see how it looks, and it gives me an idea of which direction to go. And so if I'm off a little bit, I'll try to see a car that's the fastest, not the slowest.
Yeah.
It gives me a direction to go.
Yeah. 2012, King's Royal win, that's your third, and 13 World of Outlaw wins, and you're doing all this at age 56, so the winning just continues. 2014, retirement. 2015, unretirement. Didn't last long, huh?
No, that was just a time.
Came back, filled in for Jason Johnson, I believe, for a while.
Yeah, I got the call for the second time.
I think you got a lot of calls,
I
didn't you?
filled in for, a lot of them. I was on the list a lot. When somebody couldn't make it, they called me.
I don't think that's a bad call, is it?
For them, it wasn't.
You filled in for Jason Johnson, then got behind the wheel of the Chad Clemens car. Swept the Jackson Nationals in that CJB number 5. Following year, 2016, you won the Knoxville 360 Nationals with the AG and G Range 3G. In doing so, became only the second driver ever to win both 410 and 360 Knoxville Nationals.
Well, that's pretty good.
I would think, given the list of entries. So I want to talk about that other guy that we touched on here a while back. 2016, you won at Lebanon Valley in New York in what turned out to be Steve Kinzer's final race. Is that a legit rivalry?
If he told me he was going to quit, I probably would have let him win.
Really?
But it's like we're out there and I won, and he comes up and it's like, didn't know what he would be mad about, but then he retired. I was surprised.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff that we got along fine for a lot of things. Just every now and then it didn't work out. But, you know, we were able to do a lot, the two of us being that young to be put in a spot that we were in for so long.
Mm-hmm.
We're sort of two different people, really.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but it worked out perfect for both of us, really. There's a lot of things that we did together that people never believe or understand that we did, but it was always good for both of us.
I think it was two guys whose passion to win was almost equal, and neither guy was backing down.
You know, I don't know what the percentage would be, but I think we've got a real good percentage at finishing races. You know, people want to look at the part, well, this happened or this happened, but we did tangle a couple times, but we never had a radio where we could talk to each other. So there was a lot of times he didn't know where I was going, and I didn't know where he was going. And we met in the middle.
Fair enough.
We ran a lot of races together. You know, if you go back and add all that up, it's like it's probably going to have some pretty good odds.
Yeah.
That we got a lot of races that we ran together. I didn't get to run all these outlaw deals like he did, so he had the opportunity to run more races than I did. But it's the way it works out. But it was good. It was fun. I probably wouldn't have had a book if it hadn't been for him. And I hear he's got one.
Yeah, he's working on a book right now with Dave Argerbright.
Let me promote his.
That's very kind of you. 2017, you become the first 5-time winner of the I-30 Short Track Nationals. The following year, 2018, you're now 62 years of age, and you embark on the ASCS National Tour. You had 8 wins that season, 48th consecutive year with a feature win.
Yeah, it's all been good. It's just some days are better than others.
Let's see here. You jumped into a car from a fellow in the upper Midwest, Brandon Thone. You won an All-Star Circuit of Champions race at I-34. You were 62. And then, dude, I got to tell you, I love this, and I'm sure anybody who was watching at home loved it. 2019, you sat on the pole for the Kings Royal at 63 years of age, and they decided to interview you before the race in the cockpit. And your response, I said, "Who is this?" I didn't see that coming. That was great.
Yeah.
Tell the fans about that, and for those who may not have seen that interview, what happened there?
I just got excited.
It was like WWE in the cockpit.
Yeah, what's the wrestler's name?
Ric Flair.
Yeah, little Ric Flair.
Yeah, yeah. Fans loved it.
Yeah.
Eldora fans, they went nuts.
Yeah. I heard him. And I don't hear good.
Yeah. Talk for a little bit, if you would, Sammy, about your success at the Chili Bowl. You don't spend a whole lot of time wheeling a midget. You're the only 5-time winner, 1989, 92, 96, 98, and again in 2009.
You know, if we go back to, I think it's 76, and I'm at Erie, Colorado. We're out there running a race with the Bobby Davis car. That's where they had the Rocky Mountain Midget Association. And the one guy got there, he asked me to drive his car. I said, I've never seen a midget, but I'll drive it. First night I won that. But not to take anything away, but it's like, you know, the sprint car is like, you're like riding a rocket. And then you get in these lower class cars, it's just like things seem so slow compared to what you're doing that you've got all this more time for me to think, you know, about what I'm doing or how I'm doing it or what I need to change. I would think anybody would still say that, you know, if you get out of this car that's like just hauling butt and you get in one that's half as fast, it's got to be easy because the things come at you so fast. It's like your brain or your computer's like going overtime. And so when you get in something else, it's like,
just all slows down.
Yeah. It's different, and I can see that everything I drove. You know, like when I got that late model early, the first night I drove it, it was terrible. There was a lot of things. I mean, you had to pump the brakes, and a lot of us, I don't like that. We got to change this, and then we come back and did a few other things, and then like won every race. You know, but it's just once you did this, the other stuff's easier.
Okay.
And it's not to take away from anybody that does this or that, but you know, like when we first went to the Chili Bowl or first time I even went to Ascot, it's like these guys are backing in the corner. It's like, well, I don't think I need to do that. That's helped with doing some of these other things. That's the deal to win no matter what you get in.
Yeah.
Every time I figure out how to do it. But once you've run these super fast cars, the lower ones are a lot easier.
Yeah, everything else falls into place.
For me anyway, it just gives you a lot of time to think.
Well, your success at the Chili Bowl, historically now, has made you a bit of a marked man when you go down there. People see the Swindell car and they get up on the wheel.
Yeah, I think some of it is the people we race with have got a lot younger. Maybe some of their dads push them on, but haven't had very good luck there the last few years.
Going back next year?
Yeah, I'm going to do that because I'm going to at least run a race when I'm 70.
There you go.
It might be the only one. But
love it. I'm guessing you don't feel 70.
Some days. A lot of times I feel like I'm 35 or 40 with old plumbing.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface of what Sammy's accomplished in open-wheel dirt track stuff, but it gives you a pretty good sampling of where the guy's been, what he's done. In the remaining time we have, I want to run through what he was doing while he was doing all that. 1982, you passed your rookie test at Indianapolis. I mean, you're fresh off of a couple World of Outlaws titles, and you're dipping your toes into the Indianapolis swimming pool. 1984, your first Daytona run with the Busch Series in a Pontiac Ventura, finished 12th. And I think your comments regarding your experience at Daytona were similar to what you experienced with the midget. You're wide open. You felt like everything was slow motion.
Well, not that time, but then later on I went down and was asked to come down to do a test with Dick Moroso's car, his Cup car, after Robbie had passed. One of the older crew chiefs, and he's talking to me. And I come in and I thought, well, the car's doing this, it's doing that. He says, how many Cup cars you drove down here? I said, this is the first one. He says, how do you know all that? I said, well, when I get down to the corner, I just let go of the wheel and see where it goes. Whether it goes down or goes up, and then I can tell you exactly what it's doing because I have no influence over it. He says, you take your hands off. I said, I don't put them behind my head. You just release it and let the car, because at Daytona, it's like you don't want to scrub any speed. If you got a death grip on it, you can't tell. But if you just relax and just track is so big, we're still going fast, but there's nobody else out there.
Yeah, got time to breathe.
Yeah, but it's still really narrow when you get other guys out there.
Yeah, sure.
You just got to let it flow, but I guess he wasn't ready for that answer.
I wouldn't imagine so. Following year, 1985, you went back to Daytona. Here, Sammy Swindell, the innovator, comes into play. I guess the year before, you had problems with the transmission tunnel with some heat on your leg.
Yeah.
And so what did you do to solve that problem?
We just put the deals down to hold your leg off.
Yeah, an extension off the
extension
seat.
that went all the way to the front on both sides.
Who else was doing that?
Nobody. But there was a lot of guys come over there and looked at that, and they had them.
Shortly thereafter?
Yep. Because I was in a car. It was an old car. It was one of the first front steers cars, and wasn't quite right. But I had a buddy Parrott helping me, so he was pretty good. He'd worked for quite a few good guys, and we were having a little trouble figuring it out. But we got it better. But I was out running along. I come up behind Dave Marcus and got within about 2.5 cars behind him, and going into what used to be turn 3, his starter fell off. So this stuff just goes everywhere. You can't miss 50 pieces of stuff going. It was just shrapnel everywhere. I ran over it. Well, it blew out the right front tire. And so I'm just trying to let it go up the hill to beat off some speed. And about that time, I guess Kyle Petty was coming. Well, he hits me in the rear corner and turns me 90 degrees into the wall. The first thing was, when I hit the wall, it was pretty hard. And we had those goggles. So I had
You were open face helmet.
Yeah, it was open face.
Okay.
But I had a nice pair of Scott motocross goggles. I think they hit the windshield, which is about 3 feet out. It doesn't matter which way I turn my head, it's going to come back.
Yeah, this is going to hurt. Right.
But it was like, my feet dangled around too in that. So it's like when I ran the next time we put those extensions in, I had a sprint car seat in there that we had to insert in. Had a lot of guys coming over looking at that stuff, but they didn't like my aluminum steering wheel.
No?
No, the inspector throwed that one out.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know.
It
I
wasn't
didn't
working.
know all the rules.
Yeah. That was your Cup start in Atlanta, qualified 30th out of 50-plus cars. That same year, 1985, you drove Cliff Barkham's number 11 modified for the Schaefer 200. Anybody want to guess where he qualified? On the pole, 113 miles an hour.
Never been in one before.
Unbelievable.
And they picked Syracuse.
That's their mistake, huh?
It wasn't their mistake, I don't think, so. Then the guy that was second quick was a sprint car guy. I can't think of his name, but anyway, he said, I seen you go in that corner and didn't lift, and so I didn't go. When he drove his,
Yeah.
It was kind of weird. There's 2 sprint car guys on the front of the biggest modified race in the world.
Yeah, exactly. 1985 also, I think this was an eye-opener. You qualified 12th for the Michigan 500 IndyCar race. That was the race where you lost the right front wheel, But I think there was a lesson here about politics of the game. You had a teammate by the name of Fittipaldi.
Yeah, he's South America's biggest orange producer. Or his family was. But,
okay.
So, 2-time world champion. Nice enough guy, but he doesn't like to have somebody go faster than him.
You out-qualified him, right?
Yeah.
And then you passed him in the race.
Yep.
And then what happened?
I got a call.
Yeah? What did the call say?
It said I need to let him go back by.
Why is that?
Because he's racing for points and I'm not.
Probably didn't sit real well.
No. We come down the front stretch and I told him to go ahead. And you know what happened next?
No, please tell me.
My right front tire took a guy's windshield out in the parking lot.
Oh, that happened right after that?
Yeah.
So you were going roughly how fast when the right front came off?
230 at the end of the backstretch.
And the right front comes off?
I'm sitting, I start to turn in the corner. It's like I'm gaining toe. And it
you can see that. You're processing all this.
In the IndyCar, the front tires are right here.
Yeah, okay.
And it's like, oh man, this is my first race. And when these things crash, they tear up people's feet. I just figured it out and drove it to my pit stall.
Never crashed?
Never crashed.
That wasn't the last time that happened to you?
No, when I was back there, 86, when I drove John Bertera's IndyCar.
I think it was 87.
87, yep, that's right. Go to Indy, and first I'm going down the front stretch, and this thing starts gaining toe again. I said, I've been here before.
Jeez.
I kind of figured I'd just slow down a little bit, and the wheel came off. So we were trying to get the rookie deal done.
You had to retest.
Yeah, it was a retest.
Okay.
You know, since I didn't get to race the other time. So they come there, they wrap up the bottom of the car, got to pick it up, it takes about 45 minutes to get the car back, and they put another wheel on it and try to tighten it up a little tighter. And we go back out, we're running again, and it's like, well, here it goes again. Every time going into one, I don't know, it must be downhill or something. So the second time that tire comes off, I jump out, leave the motor running, and go gather all the parts up. Then they get over there, and I said, here, just pick this up and put it on, and I'll drive it back to the pits. And he gets on the radio, and no, I can't do that. I said, here, he can hold my helmet. I'm just going to go slow. No, they had to pick it up. It's like, well, we're burning up a lot of time. You know, my IndyCar experience is probably had the most right front tires fall off and never crash.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. What else was going on? 1985, you ran the Pocono IndyCar race. That coincided with the Knoxville Nationals, so you're flying back and forth. 86, Cliff Barkham puts together a Busch car. You ran 17th at Daytona, also in 86. Indy Lights, American Racing Series, you were 5th on 2 occasions. And again, folks, keep in mind, he's still running sprint cars during this time and doing so successfully. There's just so much going on.
Yeah, but we need to back up and Pocono.
With AJ?
AJ Foyt.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, well, I had a friend, Cecil Taylor, from Kansas City, and he came to a lot of races, sprint car races stuff, but he was always with AJ, did all his tires for years. And he was always trying to get me in the car, so it's like, come down, and he says, hey, AJ wants to talk to you. It's like, oh, okay. And I go down, he says, you want to run the car? I said, sure.
Just like that?
Yeah.
You want to run the car?
Yeah. But he says, you got a seat? And I said, I don't run these cars, I don't have a seat. That'll fit in there.
So what'd they do?
We just put towels or blankets, carpet blankets and stuff in there and filled it up.
That passed tech?
Well, nobody ever checked.
Okay.
He comes there and he tells me, pull the car out. I get situated in there, take it out, and he said, okay, we'll go out here, run it in this gear, go this one, then go up to this gear and warm this up, make a lap, and come around. And then when you come back around the next time, pick the throttle up there in 3. We didn't have a radio or anything, so we'll have on the board for you. He asked his guys, give me a timing sheet. And he said, like, look, when you get to a 210 average, we're going to put you in the qualifying line. So it was like I made my slow lap, went around and made the lap, and I come back around, it's in, and it's like, well, what's going on?
They're waving you in at this point?
Yeah.
Okay, after one lap?
Yeah, I guess so, but, you know, I had to come all the way around, so then I had to run the 3/4 lap, pull in, and so, well, what's wrong? Oh, you just run 2:13. Okay, we're going to put you in the qualifying line. Well, What is it? It's like, well, just stay here and we'll get over there and you can get back in and you go out. And so I go out and make my 2 laps qualifying. It comes in and he says, what do you think of the car? I said, well, it's a little tight. The front's pushing. He said, well, my car's not. And I said, well, look at me and look at you. And we're sitting on the front tires, right up front.
Yeah.
Says, oh, yeah, that might make a difference. He says, you're ready for the race. So it's like I've got 3 laps and I start a 500-mile race. They only have 1 pit crew to do
for both teams.
So they got to run back and forth. Well, our first stop, I come in to get some fuel, and they couldn't get the nozzle. They're messing, and they'd send me back out. Well, they had to change it, and then I come back in, and they thought I was going to run out, but they didn't tell me till later. I didn't have a radio, so I had to watch for the...
So you're running the whole show without a radio?
Yep, and we can only do hand signals for the pits, whatever. It's like, I just got to drive the car, whatever it is, it's what it is. I'm just trying to stay out of trouble, go as fast as I can, and I didn't know it till after the race, but they said Goodyear was going to make them stop because they'd never run a set of tires 250 miles before the halfway point that I was going to have to put tires on, so they had to go get another set of tires mounted up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ran half the race on one set and half the race on another, where the other guys are using 10 sets. Every time they come in, they put new tires on.
Yep.
I talked with Rick Mears earlier. I said, well, I got 3 laps in. What am I going to expect? He said, well, the tires fall off after about 30 laps. So it's like 200 laps. I'm still going on the same ones. Boyd said, well, that's the best he's ever had 2 cars finish in probably 30 years. He finished 4th and I finished 9th.
That was an adventure. You mentioned Little John Brutero, 1987, qualifying for the Indy 500. Qualified 4 laps at 2:01.84 and got bumped about 25 minutes remaining in qualifying. Same year, ran an SCCA race at Memphis International, qualified 6th. You were 3rd coming off the final corner, and there was some sort of mechanical issue?
It just turned off.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I coasted, but it was uphill.
Oh.
A little bit. But that was cool. To drive a road race car, Trans Am car, and to get it in, and like we practice, and then when I stopped, the guys were, we're in the Fast 5, we're in the Fast 5. And I was, what is that? Oh, we get to race for the pole, fastest 5 cars. So I must have been all right.
Yeah.
Never been in one.
Making it happen. 91, you ran Dick Moroso's Olds in the Daytona 500. 93, your old buddy Harold Annette from Des Moines puts together a NASCAR Busch team, ran Darlington, Dover, Milwaukee, and IRP. 95, NASCAR Truck Series with Channel Lock, 5 top 5s, best finish of 4th at Bristol. Another good outing at Bristol.
Yeah, I should have won that one. Didn't have a very good motor, but the car was great. They hired a guy that tested a lot there, Roland Balatka. And he said, we'll be on the pole. And it's like, okay, that's fine with me. But we were 2nd. But we didn't get any practice because the oil tank was leaking. That was when everybody ran the bottom. But if I could get 5 laps in, then the front cross member quit hitting going in the corner. It would hit and scoot up, about a foot.
A tire pressure thing?
Yeah, some of it. So we had whatever the few laps to go. Well, I could just pull away when we get to the traffic. I didn't know any better. They all stayed on the bottom. I just go around the outside of the lap cars, and we'd get so far ahead, but then they'd line us back up to put the guy right behind you. So going in the first corner, he just drove in there and nailed me. So I slid up. It was all Cup guys ahead of me. If I could have got through them first 2, 3, 4 laps, I was gone again because I was running almost wide open.
If you were down on power, that would make sense. You could do that. Good, yeah. As I know we're getting toward the end, because let's see, you want to wrap up with, tell you what, 2 things here. Another quote. To be completely secure, you've got to be the one who controls the money.
That's what I'm talking about, the IndyCar thing with the Fittipaldi. Worked pretty hard. First I went to Patrick's because there's a lot of guys that worked on sprint cars and stuff that worked there. So I got them to first talk them into letting me come there and just leave my trailer and we'd come work.
Do some work at the shop.
Yeah, while we were up that way. Team manager come by and said, he'd let me go test sometime. Well, finally we run into that, but it was through an odd way. Their new car coming from England, from March, chassis company over there. They were trying to get it flown in so they could test it Midland, Texas. And Chicago was like all froze up, or the airport was closed. So he asked me, he said, you got a shop down there? And I said, yeah. I said, I got a nice shop, big shop. And so they flew the car in down there, assembled it at my shop, their new car, and let me go out. Emerson started ran laps in the old car to get a base deal, and then he ran the new one. And then when he left, they let me drive the old one.
What happened?
Well, I guess I did all right because they asked me to come to another test. I'd never been in an IndyCar, never been on a road course, never been at that place.
Yep.
And I was only 4/10 off what he ran in it.
Yeah.
And so they let me go there. We went to Phoenix, and I think Pancho Carter drove the car. I got in it the next day and went faster than him, just like it was right off. Then won the World Outlaw race at Aberdeen, South Dakota.
Okay.
Team manager calls me up, hey, can you come to Michigan and test? Emerson's been here for 4 days, and they had another guy, Bruno Giacomelli or something like that.
Okay.
He'd never run on an oval in the bumps, and can you come here and run? And I said, sure, just figure out a way to get me there. Go out the first time. They said, well, Emerson did this. You can run it wide open. You can do, we put more wing on it. It'll be a little slower, but then I wound up running in 5 laps what he ran in one with less wing. Then they started talking, what do you think? What do you think? I said, well, if I was at Eldora, I would do this, or I would change the weight this way, or change this pressure and stuff. And even with more wing on it, we kept going faster.
Yeah.
So then they decided they would invite me back for the race, but I didn't know they weren't going to let me win.
Yeah. No fun there.
Your tires have to stay on.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I thought about that after I read that a couple times. I'm like, that's just amazing, being able to bring that car back in one piece, and not only once, but a handful of times there later on down the road. Well, Sammy, we certainly appreciate you coming by today. I'm really looking forward to this. I tell you what, to close things out, earlier today, we dedicated the Kevin Gobrecht Gallery. Gobrecht family's here. There was a nice display in there dedicated to Kevin. You had an opportunity to race with Kevin. We lost him September 24th, 1999. You ended up sweeping that weekend. I think you provided a very nice tribute to him, if I understand correctly, in Victory Lane on the second night of the program. If you would, a couple remembrances of Kevin Gobrecht.
Never had a problem racing with him, never had any problems, and we always had some good talks, the few that we had. This is just a shame things happen, but sometimes things happen for a reason.
I think maybe the common ground for the two of you would be the passion and the work ethic.
It seemed we were kind of the same, but I wasn't around him a lot to really know him that well, but kind of a lot on the same page, same deal, same thing. We could have got along for a long time.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the thoughts. Victory Lane's that second night of the program. Did you put a special hat on that night? I think somebody said you may have donned an Amico cap in Victory Lane. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Nice tribute. And then, Sammy, I know you've got to get up the road here soon, but you got time to sign some autographs
and
whatnot? Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this journey through racing history and the personal stories that keep the spirit of motorsports alive. The Eastern Museum of Motor Racing is a premier destination for motor racing enthusiasts, showcasing a vast collection of historic racing cars, artifacts, and memorabilia. To learn more about the EMMR or to be a part of the next in-person Racers Roundtable, you can plan your visit or support the museum's mission to preserve and celebrate the legacy of racing by heading to www.emmr.org. Follow them on social media for the latest news, upcoming events, and exclusive content. Until next time, keep the engines running and the memories alive.
This episode has been brought to you by Grand Touring Motorsports as part of our Motoring Podcast Network. For more episodes like this, tune in each week for more exciting and educational content from organizations like the Exotic Car Marketplace, the Motoring Historian, Break Fix, and many others. If you'd like to support Grand Touring Motorsports and the Motoring Podcast Network, sign up for one of our many sponsorship tiers at www.patreon.com/GT Motorsports. Please note that the content, opinions, and materials presented and expressed in this episode are those of its creator, and this episode has been published with their consent. If you have any inquiries about this program, please contact the creators of this episode via email or social media as mentioned in the episode.